Hello everyone, my name is Joe Sponseller, and today I shall be your narrator for this documentary. This documentary is about the settlement of Ada. First, let's take a look at Ada as to what it is today. Ada, Ohio was founded in 1853, and it was originally known as Johnstown. S.M. Johnson was the founding father who brought the first industry to the area. After it was discovered that a town near Columbus was already called Johnstown, a post office department official in Washington, known as General Thomas Kibley Smith, renamed the village Ada for his favorite sister. Or at least that's one of the suggestions as to how Ada received its name. As small of a town Ada is, it actually has a lot to offer to the entire community. If you're tired on the weekends and you need some place to go to relax and enjoy a good movie, well, you're just in luck. Ada actually has its own small movie theater. I believe the latest movie to come out was actually the new installment of The Hobbit. I believe it was a very good one. Or perhaps that you are tired over the weekends and weekdays and you would like to get a bite to eat, maybe something to drink. Well, you're in luck. Ada also happens to have several different bars and saloons that you can go to. One of them being the Regal Beagle, which just happens to be a favorite amongst college students. Are you wanting to send some mail out to friends and family, and maybe even coworkers, or would you like to receive some in return? Well, Ada has its own public post office that you can go to and send out mail and receive some in return. And what kind of town would Ada be if it didn't have its own public attractions? Well, it does. Ada has its own historical train depot that's been here for over decades, and it's open to the public for everyone to go and visit. And of course, a small town like Ada needs to have some businesses to keep it running. Well, there is one business in particular that has made Ada popular throughout the entire nation, let alone the world. Within Ada resides the well-known Wilson Football Factory that produces all of America's footballs for Major League Football games, the NFL, and college and high school footballs. Wilson is the primary football manufacturer for the entire United States and also the world. There is no one else that the U.S. buys from for football except from Wilson. Ada is also surrounded by several miles of farmland, which is used to create carrots, soybeans, corn, peas, green beans, potatoes, and many more vegetables that you eat at your supper table. Some farmland around Ada is owned by the bigger businesses whose crops and products are sent out nationwide. However, there are some farmlands around Ada that are owned by families who do their own businesses around Ada. There is one aspect about Ada that has made it well known throughout the entire United States. It is a college town, and is the home of Ohio Northern University. Ohio Northern University was established in 1871 and affiliated with the United Methodist Church since 1899. The university has several colleges ranging from business, engineering, pharmacy, the arts and science, and law. It is nationally recognized for its intense pharmacy programs, which produce some of the best pharmacists in the United States. And now, let us take a look at the actual settlement of Ada. Before the establishment of Ada, Ada actually was surrounded by marshlands and dense forests. This area of Ohio was not yet explored. There was no settlers out here to have settled it. It was all woods and marsh. Now, this begs the question, if there's an area full of densely woods and marsh, why would anyone want to come out and settle this? To help answer some of these questions, I shall be reflecting upon the interviews done with Mrs. Dirth. Mrs. Dirth was kind enough to sit down with us and answer questions that we had about Ada and its settlement.
One of the main reasons was because there was government land available at a very reasonable cost, and this part of the state wasn't well settled as of yet. We were in the Black Swamp area, and so the ground was available to be settled and to be homesteaded. And so I think it was the time that people were coming into this area because of the want of land that was reasonable.
Well, that makes sense. If the government has land available to the citizens and is willing to sell to them, of course everyone's going to want to take the opportunity and spread out west and claim land so that way they may build their families in their home. The expansion into the west did not just end at Ada for some. It continued on farther, but for some it did. So why did those select individuals stay here in Ada and not go farther out?
Why do you think that they stayed here?
Well, my great-grandfather, and I think there was 5 others, that number runs in my mind, that there was 6 of them, and they started out from Coshocton County, which is southeast of us, and they were walking until they found land to settle on. Well, when they got to this part of Ohio, Great-Grandpa Tobias said, I have walked as far as I want to walk. This is where I will settle. This land looks good to me. So he settled here. The rest went on west. Some of them settled in Illinois, some in Iowa, and some went on to Kansas. But they each went until they found the place that suited them. And Grandpa said this was good enough. And so he didn't walk any further.
Why go any farther when there is a nice patch of land here for you to settle on? It makes perfect sense for me. When the settlers had settled down in the land of their choosing and liking, they would then send word back to their families saying, bring our friends, bring our family, we have land now, we now can live off of it with everyone. And that's how most settlers came by, was through families and friends. However, there was one big issue that all settlers had to face throughout their time expanding into the West: relationships with the Indians. Before the time of Ada's settlement, this area of Ohio was well known for having 2 different tribes of Indians, the Shawnee and the Ohio Valley tribes. Indeed, when many settlers came into this region of Ohio, there were many tribes already settled down. So now, as settlers in this new world, in the land of the Indians, they had to adapt, they had to build relationships. Most people would believe that the relationships between the settlers and Indians wasn't very good. The settlers wanted land and were willing to force the Indians off of their own just to receive it. That is not exactly the case. Let us go back to the interview with Mrs. Dirth, who has had several family members who have dealt with Indians when they first settled here in the area around Ada.
From what we have understood from Great-Grandpa and the stories that have been told, the Indians and the settlers were quite friendly. He made friends with the Indians and as far as I know, never had any problems with them. And they considered him a friend, and he considered them friends. In fact, sometimes they would sleep in the log house with the family, and sometimes they would camp in the surrounding fields. But quite often they would sleep in the cabin when they were here.
As Mrs. Dirth explained, not all relationships between the Indians and settlers were bad. They were actually pretty good. The Indians and settlers worked out agreements where they could actually trade with each other and work with each other to help better each other. And as the days and years passed on, these relationships grew, and the Indians and settlers actually became good friends. Now, you're probably all wondering, what is the purpose of this documentary? Well, at the beginning, I stated that we would talk about the settlement of Ada. Well, in general terms now, we are just talking about why settlers came to the area, and then how were relationships with the native tribes that were here. With my explanation, and the help of Mrs. Dearth, not many settlers needed to go far out in order to achieve what they wanted. Many settlers liked the land around Ada, and they decided, I'm going to just stop here. This land is perfect for what I need, and I do not need to go any farther. And also, not many settlers and Indians had any serious conflicts in the area. The Indians and settlers had developed trade agreements allowing Indians to trade the furs that they hunted and gained to the settlers in exchange for food or for clothing or materials. It was beneficial to both parties. And that was my purpose for this documentary, to explain why some settlers stayed in Ada, and also to explain some of the relationships that settlers had in the area. I hope you all enjoyed the documentary, and I appreciate you all for staying to watch it. Thank you, and have a good day.